Hello everyone, just thought we'd do a live question time. What we'll do as well is, because normally it takes time for numbers to build up, I'm going to read out a little excerpt from my book here. This is an A to Z of On the Buses. This is my third book that I had published. I've got an interview up already of Bob Grant. It's already up on the my YouTube channel. This is another one that I've got somewhere, but I cannot find the actual physical copy of the interview. So it's sort of logged and catalogued down here in my A to Z book. And it gives a good insight into Bob, some of the questions that he's asked. This is when he done an interview with John Murray of FRN Radio in Kirkcaldy. I think he was visiting our hospital, and they had a radio station in Kirkcaldy. So these are some of the questions that he was asked. Let's see. How about how he got his part in On the Buses? He told John Murray that, again, like most things, was sheer chance. Like, it happened to be doing a show called Mrs. Wilson's Diary, which was on in London for about a year, and it was subsequently televised. The producer of that was looking around, that was Stuart Allen, for likely people for this series, which nobody thought we'd done at all. We were booked for just 7 episodes, and really everybody thought that would be about it. So we did our 7 episodes, and then we did another 6, then another 13, and so it went on. 6 years later, which is a bit of an exaggeration, we were still doing it, and 3 feature films, and of course it was an enormous success. It was rather interesting, actually, as originally the writers, Ronnie Wolfe and Ronnie Chesney, took that series to the BBC, and the then head of Light Entertainment said that this will never make a series, and then, of course, the rest is history. John Murray then asked them from television to the big screen, how well did On the Buses transfer onto film? Bob answered, the films were extremely successful, particularly the first and third. They all made money, and they played all over the world very, very successfully. I think it was probably one of the only TV series that did transfer successfully to the big screen. It certainly was the only one to have 3 films made of it, and 3 that made money, a lot of money. Also, Bob was asked by John Murray the circumstances of On the Buses ending. He said, we all agreed we wanted to quit while we were ahead. The series was still very, very successful, and we didn't want to just go on to the point where people were saying, oh gosh, not that boring old rubbish again. So we quit while we were ahead. I think after 6 years anyway, we had all ran out of ideas as much as anything. This is a nice story here as well that Bob tells. Bob relates an amusing story to John Murray regarding the power of television. A couple of years ago, I was in Bombay, and a ragged little urchin, I suppose he was only about 5 or 6 years old, just dressed in a loincloth, was staring at me very intently for a very long time. And eventually he said, on the buses, in an Indian accent. And where this little urchin could ever have seen it, I don't know, but I suppose he must have seen it in a shop window or something like that. But it was quite astounding to be standing in a street in Bombay and know that you were known even by a scruffy little street urchin like him. It was really very touching and very heartwarming and very funny. This is another interesting point here. Did Bob worry about being typecast? He told Murray, no, I don't think so. I don't think that's something one really considers. If something like that On the Buses comes up, you do it and worry about it afterwards. Though it was difficult for all of us afterwards for a time, because people tend to only think of you as that character. But no, it doesn't bother me. So that's some of the stuff that's in that interview there. Just thought it'd be interesting that you, because I've got the physical copy of that interview, but I don't actually know where it is. If it's stored on a hard drive somewhere, but I haven't been able to track it down. But it is in my book, an A to Z of On the Buses. So if you've got any questions, you know what to do. Just pop them up, and I'll answer them for you as soon as I see them. post them up down on the screen there, and I'll answer them as soon as I get them. Been hard at work as well, making some more stuff for the shop that I've started up there on the Buses gift shop as well. So that's kept me busy during this time, and sort of like we're all in lockdown. Okay, so if you've got any questions, you know what to do. Post them up on the little box there. Press enter, and I'll answer them as soon as I see them. We'll be doing as well, incidentally, for those, I will be doing about another, there's probably about another maybe 3, maybe 4 at the maximum virtual on the buses locations tours that I can that will be doing very shortly within the next couple of weeks or so. So if anyone's got any questions, just pop in and post them up, and I'll answer them for you. A lot of other stuff that's in there as well that Bob Grant talks about, and I think in that interview he does talk about his love of stage, and that shines through in all of the interviews that I've heard Bob do. And he always speaks so highly of how much he loved his stage work more than anything else. So I think that's that represents why there was that deterioration in Bob from around about the mid to late 1980s, because that's when his stage roles dried up. He was fine with TV roles drying up, though, because he had lots and lots of stage work that he loved doing anyway. It was just when his TV work dried up. So it's a bit of a myth. It's one that really bugs me quite a bit when people just come out and say, oh, he never done anything after On the Buses and he got depressed. And that's not the full story at all. Bob was active, very active on stage up until the mid to late 1980s. He was active on stage. He also done a few radio shows as well that he done for BBC Radio. So, and he also toured as well with stage shows. So he was very active. It's just these people who think because they never seen him on anything on telly that he was doing nothing. But there's much more to an actor's life than just being on television, basically. I mean, I know obviously there's 1 or 2 other interviews that we've maybe seen. I've not seen one for a while where that's in his dark times when he's very depressed. And I don't tend to listen to what comes out of people when they're talking like that, because it tends to be very mentally induced what you're coming out with. You know, you're in a very dark place mentally. You'll say things that your depression will cause you to say, if you see what I mean. I prefer listening to the interviews when he had a balanced mind and he spoke with clarity of thought and all of that. Okay, so if you've got any questions, just saves me sitting here alone, rabbiting on. I can see that there's one person online. Just feel free to post up any question you've got about On the Buses. I know that there's a grey area on the matter of somebody posted up a video of the Warner Brothers intro into the film on my locations page on Facebook. All that is basically like people say, oh, Warner Brothers never had anything to do with it. Well, they were behind the first release of the video, so that's why you would have seen the Warner Brothers bit, because they would have had the rights to release the videos probably in 1980s, early 1980s, when the videos started coming out. The VHS versions of the On the Buses films would have been Warner Brother releases. So just like today in the DVDs, when you put your DVD in, you get the Studio Canal Plus, because obviously Studio Canal Plus own the rights to the films today now. Warner Brothers no longer hold the rights to that. So You know what to do. If you've got any questions, post them up in the box, and I will be happy to answer them for you as soon as I see them. Also, as well, I'm clarifying a few things as well. I'm going through the Mythbuster things as well on Facebook. Anyone that's here that's on Facebook, they can have a look at that on the locations group as well on Facebook, running through some of these myths that go around. Refuse to go away really, because they just keep getting regurgitated and regurgitated. But the more times I can put that out there, it might sink into a few more people. Facts behind the matters, like of Reg leaving on the buses when he did halfway through Series 7 and all other sorts of stuff. I hope you're enjoying your the virtual locations tours that have been putting up as well. You can feel free to comment, have a watch on them, and comment on them if you want. All comments are welcome, obviously. Same with all the other posts I've got up there. I'm hoping to add more videos in the coming weeks, as I say. And obviously, once the lockdown ends, it will be I do hope to add up some actual visits to locations as well to for people to view. The Bohemian, yeah. The door looks very similar, and the glass panel does, so it could quite possibly be filmed at the actual house. I'm quite willing to concede that one, that they filmed that in the house, but the all the other scenes were back at the studio, because the door does have that. Well, it did have, but I think it's changed now. They've done some refurbishment work. There is that glass there's a slim glass panel down the side of the door, which is, I think, where you see them squeezed up against. I don't know if that's still there now that they've done renovation work and all that on it, but I know it was there up until about 3-4 years ago, so that quite possibly could have been filmed there, but the bedroom scenes definitely were back at the studios. Yeah, I don't think they would go to that much detail, you see. If they'd done it in the studios, I don't think they'd try and recreate every single feature of the house, like the little glass panel down the side of the door. So quite possibly, I would say that was actually, they actually did film the fall down the stairs. That would have obviously been Reg. That would have been a stuntman doing that, a stunt double. So if you've got any questions, just keep them coming in and I'll answer them for you. The other one that keeps cropping up as well, obviously, is this one about did Reg drive the bus and all of that. To a point, he drove in some of the scenes, but in terms of like where people have this image that he was doing all the driving, bashing into bus stops and bus shelters and telephone boxes and going on skid pans, that's a big no-no. He might have done some very few scenes of driving, but the vast majority of the time that would have been professional bus drivers that they used. Professional bus drivers was common knowledge that they used, and there's far too many scenes when you're watching it where you can look into the cab, especially in the films, and you can see from a distance it's not Reg sitting in there. It's just like when you see the scenes when they're outside turning Betty's and he's knocking down the telephone box. That's all moving projections, which is a surefire sign that the bus the cab that he was actually sitting in was back at the studios with a backlight moving projection, which was a system that they used. Same with the skid pan as well. That was another one that done that. And there's witnesses to the witness from filming the scenes up in North Wales that say that when you see him going along the country lanes, the bus was getting towed. So that sort of like poo-poos the idea that it was him scooting around, because there is somebody that's on the Facebook group who'd said that he worked for Crossville, and Crossville were insistent that Reg didn't drive the bus out on the open road. So that's another thing that adds speedy to it. That it wasn't the vast majority of the time, it was professional drivers that were doing the jobs, driving the bus, not Reg himself. Although Reg could drive the bus, he had a PSV license, but like I've said before, he was uninsured. So of course, being uninsured, if he had an accident anywhere and anybody got injured, London Weekend and Hammer would have been culpable to pay thousands of pounds worth of damage and all that. They could have been sued thousands of pounds, and that's something they would not have wanted to do. So I don't see the point to why they would even consider. Plus, as well, you've got to remember is that the buses weren't theirs. It wasn't a case of where they could do what they wanted with the buses. They belonged to Eastern National, so they had to look after them when they had them, if you see what I mean, apart from the ones in the films, because they were out of service by that time. But definitely the ones in the TV series, they had to be very careful what they done in the TV series, because they were still very much in service, the Bristol Rebecca's that they used. So they weren't going to be tempting fate, allowing somebody who wasn't insured to drive one of the buses, if you see what I mean. Obviously, it would have been good. It came in handy because you could get into the bus and start it up and leave the perception you would get would be the bus leaving the depot with Reg driving it, but then they would do the switch and a professional driver would take over, if you see what I mean. Okay, so we've got any more questions? Just post them up. A couple of people online, so if you've got any questions, just post them up and I'll answer them for you as soon as I see it. So that's another sort of like myth as well that goes around. Obviously, there are quite a few that go around that sort of like are total falsehoods, basically. Of course, the other sorts of ones that you get that go around that are obviously the nonsense one is Richard Kiel and Holiday on the Buses, which is absolute tosh, as you all know. Obviously, Richard Kiel was 7'2", I think Richard Kiel was. Stephen Lewis was about 6'1". So how Stephen Lewis happened to be the same height as the bloke that everyone thinks is Richard Kiel is beyond me, I tell you. Maybe they think that he was on his knees or something like that. Of course, the person who people think was Richard Kiel was Jimmy, his name was. He was an actual Pontins employee, if you see what I mean. So all this talk of it being Richard Kiel is total baloney. I think it all stems from somebody put it up on an Amazon review of the film, an Amazon or IMDb review, saying it's even got a cameo from Richard Kiel in it, and that sort of like had it grow legs. People hear one person say it and think, oh yeah, it must be true then. But of course, it's absolute baloney. I mean, Richard Kiel was over in America, a Hollywood star at that time. What would he come over to appear to have a 2-second cameo of him gunning and getting paid maybe £100 for it? Because that's all Hammer would have been paying out on him for that sort of money. So it really is quite nonsensical that people actually still can cling on to it being Richard Kiel, even though they're given all the facts and all of that. I mean, even Sandra Bryant, who was there, laughs at the suggestion, and Sandra Bryant actually worked on the film as well. So it just blows the myth right out of the water, really. Okay, so you got any more questions? If you've got any questions, anyone, just post them up and I'll answer them for you as soon as I see them. Just like the Bohemians done there, just type up a question up in the box there and I'll answer them as soon as I see them. And just to say as well, there's another interesting thing that's come to light about Holiday on the Buses when they're all lined up. One of my colleagues who organised a Holiday on the Buses event with told me that he's discovered that the man that's right far left in the queue as you look at it, is the one that's far right as the camera's looking at them lined up. There's an older man standing there, and he's the last one that you see who does the gun, and Blakey tells him to shut up. He's actually Ted Hallows, who was a gaffer worked on the film. He worked at Elstree Studios on various projects like The Saint, some ITC productions, one or two Hammer films as well. He's worked at Elstree for about a dozen years, and that's who that actually is in that queue there, it's Ted Hallows. His name is. So that's a new little tidbit of information to give to you. But all the rest that were in the queue were all bona fide Hammer employees. Bonton's employees. Okay, so you got any questions? You know what to do. Post them up on the screen there. Anything to do with the cast or the crew or my books or filming locations or anything to do with the merchandise that got on sale in the shop and anything to do with the events. Obviously, you might know by now if you anyone that's watching, obviously the On the Buses event that was planned for the 6th of July this year, we've had to cancel that for obvious reasons. Obviously, it's now only, 6 weeks away and we're still in lockdown, so it's absolutely a no-brainer. How did I disperse the myth? Oh no, that was known anyway. We've been in contact with we had him at, I think his name's Francis. He was at one of our Holiday on the Buses events anyway, and he remembers Jimmy, the Ponton's employee. So that's how that myth was blown right out of the water straight away anyway, because obviously he was one of his work colleagues, if you see what I mean. So, as I said, you don't really need to be very smart to work out that it wasn't Richard Kiel for several reasons. First of all, he's a foot smaller than Jimmy, the Ponton's employee, is about over a foot shorter than Richard Kiel, and that line, as you see them lined up there. Second of all, Richard Kiel ain't going to be coming over to Britain when he's over in Hollywood working on films for a 2-second cameo where he makes himself look like a white nana in a bloody queue for maybe a payment of about £100 in a budget British comedy film. Third of all, we know there was Jimmy anyway. So I mean, there's so many reasons to blow that theory out of the water anyway. You know what I mean? It's ludicrous to even think that it was Richard Kiel. Just because it's facial similarities, anybody that knows and watches the Bond films know that the bloke's 7'2" tall. And another thing as well, the Richard Kiel was about maybe 10, 15 years older than Jimmy. So, I mean, there's so many things that you can just point to that is just so wrong. It's unreal, really. Yeah, as I was saying, the event obviously the decision had to be made to cancel it because for various reasons. We're only 6 weeks away now from the date of the event. I made the decision at the beginning of this month anyway, so everyone else, everyone that's bought a ticket, they've all been fully refunded the money. And hopefully we'll go again next year. We'll organise again, look to organise for next year. Hopefully things will have died down around the time. I normally like to start organising the events around December, January time. So hopefully it'll all be blown over by then and things will be back to a semblance of normality, because I wouldn't like it still being a case of where celebrities are two minds about whether it's still safe to be out and amongst crowds and all of that, and it might put them off wanting to attend, if you see what I mean. So there's that side of things, but I hope things just get back to normal, or at least back to a semblance of normality by, say, December, January time of next year. We'll obviously as well be looking at some point as well, maybe sometime towards the end of this year, if normality has resumed, of maybe organising another walking tour. Obviously, I'll do that through my Facebook group. I do the organising walking tours and all of that. But anyone that's interested, if you're watching here and you're not actually in that Facebook group, or you don't do Facebook, you can contact me via my email, which is, and you can always say that you want to attend. I normally only charge $5, about, I think it's about, depends on the length of it, but normally they tend to be about 2 to 3 hours of walking tours. So anyone that's on here and they like the sound of a walking tour or anything to do with the on the buses events as well, that's my email address that I can be contacted through for any information on those events. Same with anything from that I put up on my video and the promotional video for the gift shop, on the buses gift shop. If you see anything that you fancy there and that, then if you're not on Facebook, obviously, because that's where they're all on display, you can go on to the follow that email address and just send me an email and say I'm interested in this or that, or I'm interested in coming to an event or a walking tour. Okay, so you got any questions? Just post them up in the box there. And just to say as well, somebody on another Facebook group as well, they brought up an interesting point. They say that there's a book, a magazine, like a would I welcome a serious or film? No, I wouldn't, Steve. You might have seen me on my Facebook rants, but don't get me started on the quality of comedy nowadays, because it's absolutely dire, is the word that I would use, Steve. And it's not just that as well. It's a totally different era that we live in now. It's like they tried bringing back the Carry On films. The Carry On films, there was somebody talking about bringing them back a couple of years back. At the end of the day, he was talking about it, and then he said, "Oh well, they'll be a little bit more politically correct to fit in with the age that we now live in." I'm sorry, but that's just killing the whole reason of making a Carry On film, or on the buses, as would be. It'd be the same with on the buses. It would have to be too politically correct. So there'd be just absolutely no point to it whatsoever. Plus, as well, why try and beat perfection? Perfection was Reg Varney, Bob Grant, Anna Karen, Doris Hare, Michael Robbins, and Stephen Lewis. Perfection. I don't really see some wooden actor try and take the place of a legend. It's like the Porridge. They tried doing it with Porridge, and Porridge fell absolutely flat on its face, the new Porridge. I don't believe in trying to beat perfection. And they would never get the permission for it anyway. So it's really sort of like a very moot point, because the copyrights are all held by the estates of Ronnie Wolfe and Ronnie Chesney. So you need to prize that out of the hands of family who understood, like Ronnie Wolfe did, that the success of On the Buses was down to the great cast that they had. They wouldn't be wanting to hand that over to a bunch of wooden actors to do what they wanted with it. So if that seems like a rant, Steve, but that's just the way that I feel about it. I'm very strongly minded on things like that. It's the same with the Carry On films. I mean, the way that I look at it is, why try making another Carry On film? Got nothing against them trying to start up a new legacy. Why not try and get together a cast on the similar terms of Carry On, but call it something different? Do I think Reg Varney was a good actor? He was very good with his facial thing. He was more of a comic than because he was a very comedic. The better actors and on the buses for me were your classical actors, which was like Michael Robbins and Stephen Lewis and Bob Grant, because they all came through actual actors school and all of that. Reg came through a totally different background. He came through on stage where he was mostly musician and all of that, where he played piano and all of that, climbed the line a bit there, a bit of comedy and that sense of things. So he wasn't actually a comedy actor, if you know what I mean. He was more of a comedy performer. So I would say the better comedy actors on the buses were Michael Robbins, Bob Grant, Stephen Lewis. Hope that answered your question. Obviously, Reg was the most famous of them all. But if you're talking about, as you say in your question there, about the actor, definitely a good comedy actor. But in terms of the best and the serious, I would say no. I would put above them for acting skills were Bob, Michael, Stephen. And not for, I didn't mind Sexley Courtney. You can watch his early serious ones. It's a bit too absent-minded and confused, if you will. Sort of, she comes across as Doris is more of a fun figure in it, if you know what I mean. So I would have to go for Doris, obviously. But don't get me wrong, I enjoy watching the serious one episode. So it wasn't really an issue, Sexley Courtnage for me, not at all. I mean, if you watch Serious One of On the Buses, it's quite an enlightening experience, if you see what I mean, because you can see where the writers are finding out about the actual actors that they've got at their disposal, because they actually tweak them as they go along. If you look in Serious One, obviously Mum's different because it's a different character that's playing her, a different actress that's playing her, obviously. But if you have a look at the other actors and actresses, Reg stayed as Reg because they knew Reg from the rag trade, so they knew how to get the laughs by the use of Reg, you see. But the likes of Stephen Lewis was much more severe and strict in the first series, and they made him gradually more gullible, like as it went on. In the second series onwards, it was far more, they could take advantage of him. So you can see that they tweaked that character. They definitely tweaked Jack's character as well. They definitely tweaked Jack's character because Jack was more conscious about getting the bus out on time in the first series, and he changed as well. So you can see where the writers were getting to know the actors they had at their disposal. Olive, I don't think Anna Karen, they really knew how to use her, because mostly in the first series she just coughs and sneezes and all of that, and then gradually they learn how to get more of comedy out of the Olive character as well. In series 2 she comes more into it, if you see what I mean. So it's interesting watching Serious One because it is sort of like you can see how they adapt the characters as they're going along for the later series. Was Little Arthur in was it Little Arthur and on the Holiday on the Bus is Adam Rhodes. But it wasn't the same actor that played. They had three different actors that played Little Arthur. Well, not exactly actors, because the first one was a baby called Zachary Wolf that you see them bringing out of the, no relation to Ronnie Wolf, of course, bringing out of the family planning clinic at the sorry, not the family planning clinic, the hospital at the end of the film. First film, that was Zachary Wolf. Second film was Wayne Westbrook. And the third actor was Adam Rhodes, who went on to become a pilot. Yeah. And so that's the three people that played Little Arthur, if you know what I mean, in the spin-off films. No, Stephen Lewis and Doris Sayre got on just fine. They all got on fine. If you watch Doris Sayre, she even says it in the what do we call it, in the on the Wogan show. She said they were like one big happy family. Oh, look, I think Anna says it in the interview that I've got up here on my YouTube channel. She says that she puts that down to how well they got on together on screen and off screen was a big part of the success of On the Buses. So I don't know where you got on, where you've heard about Stephen Lewis and Doris Sayre not getting on, because I think that's nah. Yeah, so all you need to do is, which is very interesting, is yeah, they stayed in touch. I mean, and one of the, I don't know if it's the interview I've got up on here or if it's the interview that I've got part of it written down in my book and elsewhere that I haven't managed to find and put onto YouTube yet. Bob said this is the early 1980s, so 8 years after they're done On the Buses, and he said he still phones Reg once a week. Spoke to Reg on the phone once a week, so Reg and Thingy stayed in touch. Doris, Michael, and Anna, they went in I think it was 1983, was it? They done the On the Buses a fresh start in Canada. So obviously they stayed in touch for that length of time and worked together again later on as well. Stephen Lewis and Bob Grant had done friendship that went back way back to the early 60s when they met at the Joan Littlewood Theatre Workshop. So and that carried on. They wrote stuff together as well. So yeah, they all stayed in touch. Favorite episode. My favorite episode is Do It Yourself, I would say. Just for the scene of like the breathalyzer scene and all that's very funny, and the Arthur and Olive being drunk at the end as well, and Stan turning up at the depot drunk as well is really funny. There's a lot of very strong episodes in Series 3, which is definitely the golden period of On the Buses for me. It's you could probably pick out about 7 or 8 episodes from there, and you would find that you could probably pick 7 or 8 episodes out of Series 3 that could very well have made it into the top 10 of On the Buses episodes. Favorite films, the first one I would say. I just love the soundtrack. I love prefer the premise of it being set in the bus depot, because for me that's what On the Buses was built on, the success of it. Obviously, all your fans, the fans would all say Holiday on the Buses, but for me it's a bit tinged with sadness, knowing it's the last time that they ever worked together again, and seeing the depot knocked down at the end. It's sort of like all a little bit sad, that's it, ending for good. The worst episodes tended to be the ones that were laced with negative emotions. So I would probably say The Visit with Blakey's mum in it, I would say, was about as it goes for the worst episode. Either that or Olive's divorce, where Olive just cries all the way through it, basically. Or at least that's got a few interesting location shoots in it, I suppose, which sort of helps it out a bit. The Olive's divorce. Another one that I don't like is Not Tonight, I think it is. and that's the one where Reg gets his money pinched by the canteen woman, and she goes and gets a job and gives him the brush off. She gets a job up in the office, the manager's office, and gives him the brush off. They were ones at a list where sort of like I didn't mind the nursery because it wasn't so negative, sort of like emotions in it. The nursery it had its moments, like with a pinching the food, and Blakey comes in and catches them, and when Olive's trying to do the nappy on the doll and all of that, she makes like pig's ear of it. So it's got its moments in nursery. As it's not a bad episode in nursery, in my opinion. Yep, so you just want to come along and post up your questions like Steve's done there. Just keep the questions coming in. I'll answer them for you as soon as I see them. I know that somebody brought up a point as well, just while I'm waiting for another question to come up. On another on the bosses group, somebody brought up a point. You said that there was a book that claimed that it was like a busman's book or something like that. And it claimed that Hammer bought the buses to use in the films. I find that very hard, in fact, impossible to believe, because Hammer done things on a budget. They wouldn't be spending out hundreds of pounds on buses to use in the filming. Because if you follow the trace of what happened with the buses, there is a site that you can do that on. Once they went out of service, the ones that they used in the film late in 1970, early 1971, and then they started using them in the filming. From there, they went on to like a bus enthusiast, a bus restorer person who had the bus. His name was S12. He was based in not sure where he was based, but he was based somewhere anyway. And then after the first film, the buses went up to there as well. So why didn't Hammer keep them at the Elstree Studios if they had actually bought the buses? Don't buy into them buying the buses at all, really, because the amount of money that would cost, and that wasn't Hammer's way of doing things. How many cast wrote a biography? Only Reg did, and that was only like a part biography, because it only sort of like ran into the first half of his career before he started on the buses, obviously. Stephen Lewis never married, no. He had nephew, Peter Lewis, who was very close to his sister's son, who was very close to, who actually appeared in an episode of On the Buses as well. Okay, just keep the questions coming in. So, like I say, I know somebody brought it up. They said they had read it in a bus magazine or something like that, and they claim. What cast members have you met? Oh, a lot, a lot. Let's see, Anna Karen, Hal Dyer, Avril Gaynor, Harry Fielder, Cheryl Hall, Patricia Clapton, Olivia Breeze, Andrea Lawrence, Pamela Kendall, Deirdre Costello, Gay Brown, Sandra Bryant, Nina West, Michael Slater, John Lyons. Let's see now, there's more than that, I know there is. Jules Walter. I know there's more than that. Just Helen Fraser, Tamara Seaman. Let's see now. Alan Curtis. So you can see there's quite a fair few that I have met. Lucy Allen, she was uncredited. Linda Regan, she was uncredited as well. She was in the first spin-off film. If I could own a prop or piece of costume from either shows or films, what would it be? Good question. It would maybe be the uniforms that they have in Holiday on the Buses. So perhaps about the uniform from Holiday on the Buses. I do have one that I sort of like made. It's like a replica that I made myself, put together. It's not quite the right shade of blue though. It's my jacket's a little bit of a darker blue colour. So perhaps the uniform that they have on in Holiday on the Buses, because it is very smart, or feeling that it'd be the uniform from maybe the TV series. I think Anna's a very private sort of person though, Steve. It would be nice, but I think Anna's a very private sort of person. She keeps what she knows to herself, really. She's not one that's sort of like one for spreading stuff around, if you know what I mean. Although she'd be sort of like it's just something I used to watch as a kid, really. And then you got then it went off the air for God knows how long. It went off the air from the mid 1970s, late 1970s. It didn't appear on TV again until the 1990s, and it was like Granada Men and Motors, I think it was, although somebody said it was something else. It was Granada Plus. Somebody said that it resurfaced again on Sky in the 1990s. Began watching it again, and then for the first time I was really seeing it and getting the adult jokes that there was in there, because when I first saw it, I was only maybe 5-6 years old, so a lot of the adult jokes just went right over my head. So when I saw it again, from like 1990s, it was seeing them through an adult's eyes. It was like watching them again for the first time, when you were seeing them through a totally different perspective then. And then it just sort of like grew on me, I suppose. I started our forum in 2006, I think it was. I think that was the very first forum dedicated to On the Buses. And then through that's when I started sort of like we started up threads to hunt down locations, and also had ideas about starting up this event, and that's how that came about as well. So sort of like that's how it's come from. Yeah, I wear that. I tend to wear that to the holiday events, but I did wear it last year at the Boreham Wood event, the replica costume. I think you might have seen that in the pictures of the, if you've seen pictures from the last year's Boreham Wood event, you see me in the blue jacket and white trousers, and that's me. Who can pose the theme tune? Are you talking about the one from the TV series? That was Tony Russell, if you're talking about the one from the TV series, Stephen. Or Happy Harry, that was Tony Russell. talking about the one from the first film, Steve, It's a Great Life on the Buses. That was Jeff Unwin who wrote that. And the second film's theme was done by Ron Grainer, who, of course, is more famous for the Doctor Who music, obviously. And then the third film was Dennis King, who obviously had success as well with the likes of, I think he done Black Beauty, and he did Black Beauty, he did the, I think he done, did he do Wuzzle Gummidge? And I think he done the Dick Turpin theme music as well. Oh, well, it was only obvious, isn't it, Stephen? It's going to go downhill. Of course it went downhill. It went downhill. The peak was Sirius. The dip came after Sirius 5. Sirius 5, Ronnie Wolf and Ronnie Chesney at the end of it, they left and went to work in America, work on the American spin-off. And then they had to bring in other writers. And then there was that little bit of a dip in Sirius 6 for me. The episodes started to get a little bit darker in terms of Oliver and Arthur's relationship, where they were arguing all the time. So that was a little bit of these negative emotion that I was saying creeping into it. And then, of course, Michael Robbins left, so that was another big dip down then. And then Reg left, obviously. But if you go into any sitcom, if you were to go into Only Fools and Horses and take Trigger and Dell out of Only Fools and Horses, oh hell, sure it would go downhill. If you took somebody like Rigsby and Miss Jones out of Rise and Damp, that would go downhill as well. It's as sure as eggs are eggs. They'll go downhill, obviously. Nothing's infallible in terms of any sitcoms that you want to talk about. If you take two very funny characters out of it, you're going to notice a dip in it, definitely. Oh, that's a tough one, Steve. Very tough. I mean, because my favourite actor from On the Buses was Michael Robbins. But I might have to just say for that, I might just have to say Bob Grant, just to give him the chance to know how loved he was, if you know what I mean, and it might have made things turn out differently, if you see what I'm saying. So I would normally say I maybe went for Michael Robbins, but Bob Grant needed it more, if you know what I mean, like somebody to say to him how loved he was and things like that. So I would probably just say maybe Bob Grant. I would probably find a lot of interest in talking to Michael Robbins as well, but that was a good question. Okay, so keep the questions coming in. It's 4 people online, so it's not just Stephen and the Bohemian. You can get your questions in, the other 2 who are watching. Just post up a question if you've got any questions. Favourite filming spot? I don't know what you mean by favourite filming spot. Filming location. I always like the filming locations that were very hard to find. So it's very satisfying to go to a location that was very tricky to find and realise that you finally got it after a long lot of searching. That's probably the one that I would probably go for. So probably would say it was the last really difficult one that was to find, which was like from the Perfect Clippy when they get off at the terminus, because I searched for so long to find that location. So at the moment I would say that one, because it was so great to finally realise that for a while I couldn't find it anywhere, and I thought, well, must have been knocked down. Must have been knocked down and redeveloped after all this time, but finally came across it. So at the moment I would say that one, which is like it's Chelmsford Road in Lambeth. Probably that one, I would say. In terms of like picturesque value, then obviously it would probably be somewhere like Desert Falls or maybe Barkley Beach, where they filmed the closing scenes when the buses beached on the sands on the holiday on the buses. Yeah, obviously it'll take a time for that to come about. Obviously I've got about maybe 150 locations to visit and photograph. So, and obviously we can't do nothing about that just now. So that might not be for another maybe couple of years yet, a year, 2 years away, to visit all these locations and photograph them and then write entries for them, and then obviously put them into the final manuscript. So it'll be a very long process, but hopefully the sooner this lockdown ends and the sooner I can get cracking on with that sort of thing. Okay, keep the questions coming in. You got any more questions, just post them up and I'll answer them for you. Just to say as well, if you've watched the Wood Green virtual locations tour, I do point out, because there is a bit of confusion there. A lot of people tend to think that oh yeah, I've met Kate Williams, Stephen, yeah. I met Kate Williams at the event last year. Obviously, I forgot to mention Kate as another one that I've met, yeah, when you were asking me earlier on. I knew there was other ones that I'd not mentioned. There was Kate Williams. I never mentioned Adam Rhodes, Wayne Westford. So they're other ones that I've met. Jeanette Wild, that's another one that I've met. And Carolee Donahue, Annette Long, who was the second one that was on the and Maureen Sweeney I've met as well. So there's a few more as well to add to the list that I mentioned earlier. Yeah, Kate was very nice to talk to Kate at the Holiday on the Buses event that she attended, that I co-organised. Had a nice chat with her. Had a lot of nice things to say about Michael Robbins and I think it was it Stephen Lewis and Bob Grant, obviously, because there were people that moved in similar circles to all, came through sort of like grammar school and all of that, so the same as Kate did. So she could recognise their sort of like their talent, if you know what I mean, which was like trained into them, whereas in others. Yeah, she was up there last year, Stephen. I think that was the first time she had been back. So yeah, she was up there last September. If you have a look around on Facebook, you'll find photographs from the event. Obviously, I think it's photographs from her standing outside the actual first aid room and all of that was such like. Okay, so you got any more questions? Just keep posting them up. And I'll answer them for you as soon as I see them. No, that's all right, Steve. I'd sooner have the questions and not have any at all. That's what it's all about. It's a question time. and bombard maybe as many as you like. The more the better. More questions. So it's thanks to you for sort of like keeping things moving along, if you know what I mean. That's what these are all about. These are for me to answer questions on. Oh yeah, there would have been the money that they would have got would have been quite similar to I think what the cast got for Carry On films. Reg would have been top of the tree because obviously he was like the star of the show. Probably I think the figures I had, I think he got like £5,000 for the film. So like back in those days, that's quite a fair bit of money. So probably you would have found it going down in a sort of like a down from there. Like you might have found that maybe the likes of Bob and Stephen were 4,000 and Doris 4,000 and maybe Anna and Michael maybe 3,000. I don't know, something like that off the top of my head. That being for the films, of course. It's a bit like your Carry On films there that staggered like that. Obviously, not everyone was on the same sort of like wages. You would find that some got paid more than others by incremental amounts, really. So definitely, Reg would have been the top paid. So, any more questions? Just keep them coming in. I'll answer them for you. One of the little things, if you're interested in that sort of thing. Just show you what it looks like. Sort of things that you've got going in my shop. I'll just get this on just now. I don't know if you can see that or not. There you go. There we go. What we want. Look at that, eh? Sorts of things I've got in my shops there, those pictures there like that. Got various other ones as well. So, you got any more questions? Just post them up and I'll answer them for you. Okay, any more questions? Okay, any more questions, anyone? We started off with this, so if there's no more questions coming in, what we'll do is, hold on just now. I would say, Steve, it was down to a simple reason as if you think about it, I came out in about, I think it was like about 19, when did this book come out? I think it was like 1990 or something like that, that book came out, which had just finished. But then of course, he had other health problems just shortly after that. He had stroke, so that maybe scrambled his head a little bit and found writing a little bit harder. Although he did take up painting, which he done a lot of his own painting and all that, painting water, colour paintings. So that is sort of like maybe part of his brain was scrambled up by that, or perhaps the painting. He found more out. He got more out of the painting and decided to put more emphasis on that than the actual writing side of things. If you see what I mean. So it could be one or either, really. So I'll finish off here now if there's no more questions coming in with Stuart Allen. This is also from my A to Z book. Stuart Allen, this is Stuart Allen's memories of working on the buses. And this is what Stuart Allen had to say about it. London Weekend Television had just started as a television company, and the head of programs at London Weekend Television thought that he wanted to have a better style of comedy. Fortunately, the audience, our television viewers, weren't keen on very sophisticated middle-class comedy. And I said to Frank knew that was, I think we ought to do something which appeals to the majority of people and not just a few. And so he said, well, I've got this script here. It's been rejected by the BBC. What do you think of this? We read it and we thought this is a sort of show we need to do at London Weekend Television. And we set about casting it. Reg Varney was available and had been in the rag trade, and very successful he was too. And he was very keen, and both the Ronalds, Wolf and Chesney, thought that he was the man for the job. So that's the start. Having got the star we needed, Mum, I approached various actresses, and the first actress I approached was Doris Hare, because Reg liked her and I liked her, and we thought she would be ideal. So I went to see her. She lived by Putney Bridge and said, Doris, will you come and be the mum and on the buses? I told her all about it, and she said, yes, I'd love to, Stuart, but my husband's job is a phrenologist, and he's in a conference in South America, and I've promised to go with him, and so I'm not available. we couldn't put the show off because television companies had to have the show when they wanted it, but not when you could do it, and so she couldn't do it. I tried various actresses, and in the end, I asked Dame Cicely Courtnidge, so as she was then, if she would do it, and she did, as you know, the first series. But she didn't gel with the others. She was a big star in her own right. And the thing about On the Buses, it was a team show. Everyone helped everyone else, and we couldn't have people who wanted to do their own thing. And Cicely Courtnidge's idea was to sit around the piano and sing songs. Anyway, then we had to cast the bus conductor and also the inspector. And I had fortunately been asked by London Weekend Television to do a show called Mrs. Wilson's Diary that had run successfully in the West End for some time. It was based on a private eye who ran this sort of diary every week, and they made a stage show of it. And and in the cast there were two actors, Bob Grant and Stephen Lewis. Stephen, funnily enough, played an inspector looking after Harold Wilson in the story of Mrs. Wilson's Diary. I thought he's a great actor, and Bob Grant, with his great big teeth, he played George Brown. He was a drunken foreign secretary at the time and was quite notorious. But anyway, Bob was very amusing playing this character, so I suggested that the Ronnies, Wolf and Chesney, have a look at these two, and they agreed with me that they were right for those two parts. Michael Robbins, he's no longer with us now. I worked with him at the BBC when I was producing at the BBC, and I thought he was quite talented and ideally suited. But I was stumped when it came to Olive, and so I said to the Ronnies, I don't know a girl who is sort of plain and fat. Stuart credits Ronald Chesney and Ronald Wolfe with casting Anna Callan for the part of Olive, and he offered this memory. Another amusing story about Anna was that when the show became successful after the second series, when people were watching in their millions, she started to get a little glamorous and she started to slim a bit. And of course, this wasn't good. She was a very sensitive girl, and I find that if I upset her enough in rehearsals and said rather nasty things to her, she'd rush off to the canteen, eat a lot of cream buns, and come back with a figure that we required. That's a casting for you. And we went through all of them. It was a fact that they worked so well together that I think has ensured that the show continues to be successful today. So that's was Stuart Allen talking about On the Buses there. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to call it a night now because the questions have come to an end there. But I hope you've enjoyed this little question time, and I hope to do it again sometime. Okay, let's keep watching for the updates on the YouTube channel, because there will be more on the way with more virtual location tours. Okay, bye for now.